it's a capital offense in most Islamic countries. I think it is in a few. I couldn't list offhand, but there's actually been like a huge movement among queer Muslims for reform because I will not bore you with the scriptural details, but the argument that people use against homosexuality is very, very flimsy. So, like, it doesn't, if you actually go and read it, the arguments that Islamic scholars have been using, it's more of like a power trip than it is actually based in something in the religion.
What I was reading was that homosexuality is forbidden in Islam, and acts of anal sex are explicitly punishable by death in accordance with the Hadith. Whomever you find doing the deed of the people of Lot, then kill both the doer and whomever he is doing it to. And homosexuality is a capital crime in Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Yemen, Sudan, and Mauritania.
Well, Iran shouldn't have a problem because, according to Madman Ahmadinejad,
there's no gays in
there are no gay people.
They have no homosexuality in Iran because they give them all
and he's
sex
so believable.
That's right. Yeah, he's really with it.
So you're actually, that's pretty, I don't know how to call it, subversive of you to be gay and Muslim woman.
Well, okay, so here's the thing about the story of Lot, because Christians have this too. It's a little bit different for Muslims, but, okay, so I'm not a Quranic scholar by any means. However, if you're interested in this topic, I would recommend checking out the book called Islam and Homosexuality. It's by Scott Kugel, who is also a gay Muslim and a religious scholar. And I met him recently at a retreat for queer Muslims.
Nora, I hate to interrupt you, but we're going to have to go to a hard break in a second. Could you hold on with us, and we'll get you back up
stay on
here
the line,
as
Nora.
soon as we do our station ID.
We'll be right back to you.
We'll be right back. We welcome everybody. We welcome your calls as well, and the number here is 305-541-2350. We're also streaming live on the internet, and that's at reality-radio.net. Go ahead and join the chat room, which I have not checked. I'm going to see how, sometimes there are people in that chat room, they're just having fun by themselves. I'm going to have to go ahead and check that.
And I hope everybody is enjoying a guilt-free snuggle with someone right now. That's my wish for everyone out there. So, Nora, we were talking about homosexuality and Islam, and you were mentioning a book?
Yeah, so if you're really interested in the scriptural interpretations, Dr. Scott Kugel, who is a gay Muslim and a religious scholar, a very well-respected academic religious scholar, wrote a book called Islam and Homosexuality, which goes into a lot of these topics. But for the basics, for what you had mentioned, Ingrid, the story of Lot, a lot of people interpret that to mean that sodomy is wrong, and therefore all homosexual behavior ever, to the end of time, is wrong. However, the story of Lot, at least as Muslims know it, I'm not really familiar with it in Christianity, is about how the people of Lot basically raped and pillaged travelers. So some people are arguing now that, scripturally, that the story of Lot doesn't outlaw homosexuality, it outlaws that God was talking about the rape and the pillage and the non-consensual relationships, or the non-consensual activity. And so the sodomy thing was not what God was outlawing, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I understand.
So,
a lot of.
And then on top of that, there's the problem that sodomy is not the only kind of homosexual behavior on the planet.
Sure.
What about the rest of it?
and that's I think that shows the diversity within religions as well, and a lot of it is left up to translation. For example, the word fornication is used by conservative religions, conservative Christianity, to be the definition of premarital sex. However, the actual translation means illicit sex or illegal sex, such as you were talking about. So progressive Christians would say that, premarital sex is okay, and that fornication was referring to illicit sex such as incest and bestiality and adultery. And then, of course, conservative Christians, like you were saying, fundamental Muslims as well, are tending to translate things to, deny certain behaviors and prevent certain behaviors such as homosexuality or premarital sex as well. One thing I did read and find out about the Quran, which I loved, is a hadith that suggests that a man should not leave the proverbial marriage bed until the woman is satisfied, a reference that some scholars say points to orgasm. So for a religion that's seen as very, kind of anti-feminist, that's the only religion that I've seen as a reference to female orgasm. I actually like that. I learned something.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, the thing about Islam, which actually this goes back to both of the articles, is, okay, so in Islam, literally almost anything is permissible within a contractual relationship, which in history there were many kinds of contractual relationships, and nowadays there's just marriage. And the reason for this is in Islam, relationships are, first of all, marriage is very, very important. Muslims are told not to be celibate. We're told that marriage is there's actually a
duty, right? It's a duty.
Yeah,
it's your
duty.
It's
not a duty. Like,
okay.
It's not necessarily a duty. Like, you're not obligated to do it, but it's considered a very positive thing, and it's like
a
families
good
are
deed.
the basic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the basic building block of the Muslim community, and so marriage is very highly encouraged. And
In Judaism, it actually is one of the things that a man is supposed to do. He's supposed to marry someone. A woman does not have to get married, but a man is supposed to get married. And a man is supposed to go ahead and make sure that his wife is treated comfortably and is treated sexually in a very positive light.
Is there mention of orgasms there?
I don't think that I saw that in the Old Testament.
What would your wife say, Dr. Mike?
They didn't have orgasms. They just begat quite a bit, no orgasms, just begatting, and they knew people a lot,
I got you.
They just knew this one and knew that one, and
yeah.
So that there's no specific reference that I can come up with, thou shalt orgasm. But
that's right. Why isn't that a commandment? The world would be such a better place, wouldn't it? We wouldn't have all this guilt.
Nora, it's so funny that there's so many problems between Judaism and the Muslim religion, where in essence we are like first cousins. It's
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, and many times throughout history we were very close with each other, and like a lot of Jews fled Europe and went to Morocco and lived with Muslims and lived side by side and were welcomed there. And so it does make me sad that there are problems now. But I'm glad to hear that we have similar views on marriage.
So, Nora, when you go to a Muslim temple, is it called temple?
Mosque.
A mosque.
It's called a mosque, yeah.
Are you open about your homosexuality, or as you call it, pansexuality?
I am pretty much open about just about everything about myself.
Wow. And how are you treated for what's been the reaction to you?
In my experience, like, I've been very involved in the Muslim community where I live now, and I'm involved in two communities, the Muslim community and the queer community, and never the twain shall meet, except in very, very rare cases, like the queer Muslim retreat that I went to recently.
Wow. So. And
people tend to just ignore it. Like, they don't, I don't get a lot of, I mean, every now and then someone will say something to me and I'll be like, can we sit down and talk about this? But usually they just agree to disagree, or they just pretend that I never came out to them if I'm out to them.
Yeah, but you don't feel that you're unwelcome, that you couldn't walk into any mosque and be who you are, or could you sit holding, are the mosques segregated? Could you sit holding hands with your loved one, or no?
It's a mosque, actually.
Yeah.
I actually don't go to a lot of mosques because they're not disability accessible, and I'm disabled. Most mosques are not disability friendly, and a lot of mosques aren't woman friendly, which is another problem that we're really working to change. But one of the things that I had a great experience with at the retreat was being in the first queer-friendly, woman-friendly prayer space where men and women prayed next to each other, because typically women pray behind men, and where women actually led prayer, a mixed-gender prayer, and I led a mixed-gender prayer for the first time, which is a very, very big deal. Amina Wadud was one of the first women to lead mixed-gender prayer in the U.S., and people threatened to kill her for it. So it was a really powerful experience. There are actually people around this country building egalitarian prayer spaces like this for Muslims, which makes me very happy.
Wow, very progressive. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Dr. Mike. You had a couple comments?
Yeah, Dawn, we have in studio...
Nora, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nora. We have another caller, Dawn, who's coming on, but I think what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, you can join us with her on the air, because I think in this way we'll have someone with a Judaic background, a Christian background, a Muslim background, and we'll see what Dawn has to say.
Okay.
So if you want to keep on joining us, that would be great. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get Dawn on with us as well. Dawn, are you there?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, welcome to Reality Radio. What's going on?
Hi. Well, this is Dawn, and I thought I would give a call in.
Hey, Dawn, thank you so much for calling. What is your faith?
Hi, Ingrid. I am actually interfaith clergy and a pagan priestess and a Kadishti.
Wow, what's the last term? I'm not familiar with that.
Kadishti is a follower of sacred sexuality.
And so by pagan, do you mean the Wiccan faith, a witch, what we would call a witch, or?
Well, I actually have Wiccan training. I actually grew up Protestant.
You better be careful. The company here is owned by Salem Broadcasting, so, you know.
Uh-oh. So,
maybe that's why she's calling in.
So, well, I have Wiccan training, but I also have shamanistic background, Native American, and Kadishti, and a very eclectic. So, but that's why I call it interfaith.
Okay, and did you hear some of the comments? We had the article on atheists versus religious atheists having more satisfying sex, or agnostics.
I did, and I had two comments on that. And one is that the article did not seem to represent paganism, was not mentioned at all.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience with I just came back from a festival, and most of the people that I surround myself with are pagans of one sort or another. And I would say we have...
So you were raised Christian?
I had a Protestant minister grandfather, and it was very, very strict. So, but my actual household wasn't as strict. It was more the grandparents. So, and I never understood how they could judge people for their gender or their sexuality or their race or anything like that. So I started looking at my Native American heritage and went from there.
And did your family have a problem with you being a Wiccan? There's a prescription in as some people reference in the Bible, against witchcraft and magic and all of that. What's your response to that?
Actually, I moved away, so I didn't really have to share that with them. And I am so much into my seat of power that it wouldn't really matter to me. So
you never brought, you're saying that guilt or those,
no.
Those prescriptions, those mores didn't come with you? Or you left them behind when you found your faith?
Absolutely left them behind, because I didn't understand them. I mean, I still didn't have them then because I didn't understand why there was limitations. It made no sense to me. And once I found my pagan path and started doing the research on the Kadishti and the gods and goddesses and, all the positive sexuality part, that's where I found home. So, and that's how I live my life. I embrace my sexuality.
Yeah. So Nora, are you still with us?
Yeah.
So you're also Native American, which is interesting, right? You have part Native American?
Yeah, I'm half Native American.
So what are you thinking of Dawn's path, and how would you view that from your point of view, being a Muslim woman?
I actually have a lot of friends who are pagan, and I'm pretty familiar with pagan spirituality, and I love it. Like, I think Islam, like in Islam, anything that happens within a contractual relationship, contractual is important because we have rights and obligations to each other. So like husband and wife have rights and obligations to one another to take care of one another, and that's why marriage is considered important for a sexual relationship, for that security to be there. But within that relationship, sexuality is supposed to be celebrated, and the Prophet was very clear on this, like, what you were saying about the orgasms. I mean, men and women are supposed to celebrate sex and take care of one another, and it's not just supposed to be the women taking care of sexual needs of men, but people taking care of each other's sexual needs.
Mm-hmm.
And as long, and to celebrate sexuality, and not just for procreation, for pleasure as well.
Now, Dawn, in paganism, is it okay to have sex